Hey, rewatchers, welcome back to the next Retro Rewatch. I have gone through the time portal and I have arrived at Trey's house. How crazy is that?
Chris is here in my house in Charlotte, North Carolina. Don't Google us. Make sure to like, subscribe, share the Retro Rewatch. We are trying to grow here. Got a great to have Chris in person here. Going to talk about another Halloween related movie. We're going to do All Hallows Eve. Watched it last night and Terrifier.
Yes, we're going to have a hot watch more than a rewatch because this is our first. Well, it's not your first time seeing it. It's my first time seeing either one of them. It was your first time with All Hallows, but not Terrifier, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
All Hallows Eve is the 2013 movie directed by Damien Leone. He's done All Hallows Eve. He did a short, which we can talk about. He also did Terrifier 1, Terrifier 2 that came out, I believe, in 2022, and then the upcoming Terrifier
Terrifier
3
3.
has been released, I think, in like Australia and some other countries.
Yeah.
And then also it's going to be,
Been on the circuit like for festivals, stuff
yeah,
like that. So I mean it's out there. People are seeing it for sure.
yeah. So we
It's
got
the
that.
the first 10 minutes is supposed to be like really extreme from what I've read.
Yeah.
So like so real quick on Terrifier 3, have you seen it? So like there's a big thing on social media right now talking about it's too sick, people are walking out and throwing up, stuff like that. Have you heard about that?
I've heard about it.
Okay, so
And it's a Christmas-based movie, which is great. Or thing.
right.
Yeah.
But do you know how the marketers got that, how they can say that? Do you know what ploy they use to get that to happen?
Uh,
So what they did for their test audience, they sent pamphlets out to people and said, "Hey, would you like to come watch a holiday movie and come see
um,
it?" Not telling them what it was, not telling them it was a horror movie, and it says a holiday movie, like a Christmas holiday movie. So they're like, "Oh, we're gonna go watch like Red Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or something," and then so you got all these unsuspecting people that probably don't even like horror movies to start with go in to see this movie. Yeah, half the theater gets up and walks out. Some of them get sick, and then you got the one guy in the corner like, "That's
right.
you know what I'm saying? It just happened to be like, the one lucky guy to go to a movie he wanted to see.
Right. That's interesting, really creative marketing there.
So,
You might have had some like very PG related type things. Yeah, this is gonna be hard. This is gonna be a Hallmark movie, and then watch this Terrifier 3.
I wonder if anybody took their kids.
Ooh,
I don't know that. I don't know. I wonder if it did have a disclaimer of like, think about bringing your children or think about not bringing your children or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Or if
right.
it was like, well, this like super mega hardcore, like possibly not even rated movie, like, yeah, bring your 5-year-old. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Let's hope not. I hope they follow the rules on that. But Chris, real quick, maybe share that hard copy.
Right. So, all right. So, what we have here is from Umbrella Entertainment, which is out of Australia. We have got Terrifier. And what's unique about this one is it has All Hallows Eve included on it. So, kind of like we've done the last few, I guess I'll kind of give a real quick synopsis of the transfer of the movie. So, got to watch a movie on Trey's setup. He talks about his 4K setup every time, ever since he got it hooked up. He's real excited about it. Had to do some tweaking on the sound to make sure that things sync correctly, but presentation was pretty good. The presentation on Terrifier was a lot better than on All Hallows Eve. I don't know if it's because they put more resources on the disc towards All Hallows, I mean, to Terrifier versus All Hallows Eve, because if I'm not mistaken, whenever we looked, it looked like they actually had more budget for All Hallows Eve than what they're showing for Terrifier. So I don't know about that, or he figured out some tricks to make it look better. On All Hallows Eve, there was a lot of bitrate issues in the blacks where it had a lot of breakup. It had a lot of pluming and blooming. Um, it had a lot of, you could tell they were putting it through filters and processors to try and make the footage look like it was a VHS tape and or like a grindhouse film. Like for the very first short, which was actually called Full Circle. I think it was actually a short that Leone did in 2008. That one they tried to make it look like a VHS tape, and then you had the middle story that involved the alien. That was actually the new footage they shot for this movie, as well as the frame story. And that one just kind of looked kind of like a normal movie, really. It didn't have a whole lot of filtering to it. And then for the third one, which was Terrifier, which was a short that he shot, that had Art the Clown as a primary character, it looked like a grindhouse film. And again, so it looked like grindhouse film as opposed to a VHS tape, but kind of like VHS. The frame story of this anthology was the kids went trick or treating. They got a VHS tape. They put the VHS tape in, and the babysitter is watching this, and I could not for the life of me figured out who that one was. It like Amy McAdams or something maybe? I know she looked like somebody to me. And I couldn't put my finger on it. Now, like, she wasn't the person I was thinking she looked like, but anyway, she was a redheaded lady, Katie McGuire. She actually shows up again in Terrifier. She's like the talk show host, but I mean, we can talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But I really liked All Hallows Eve. I'll get into why I liked it, but I'd like to hear your opinions on it before we get into that.
Yeah, first off, talking about the budget, and I always like bringing that up. Got it here. Looks like 500,000, which, for a, it's limited, but, first time.
Right, yeah, for a first time film, like, because this was
bad.
really, he had done shorts, but this was his first real film, I think, that he had done.
Yeah, so 500,000, and then we'll talk about Terrifier. But I'll say we'll get into it. I'll say maybe like Terrifier a little. I've seen Terrifier before. I think this might have been my like third time. So I think
You're
I
a sick
like
individual, Trey.
I like Art the Clown. He's kind of grown on me. I didn't know what to think at first. But yeah, I thought it was a good anthology. I was mentioning that kind of broke it down a little bit. I will say the second story with the sea creature.
Yeah, I was like, I called it like a scuba diving alien or something. It's kind of what it looked like.
Yeah, and he kind of had this noise, this kind of noise that he made, and like walked around. He kind of chased the woman in the house. I wasn't really saying that. Maybe that's a little weaker.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was the weaker of the three stories.
Yeah.
But I know, so like, I can tell you what I liked about All Hallows Eve. I like the frame story.
Yeah.
I like anthology. I like VHS and movies like that, Creep Show, stuff like that.
I
So
also like Trick or Treat, which is a good.
see, and I haven't seen that one.
Oh.
Like Shout Factory, I think has got a limited edition 4K of that coming out soon. I've looked at. Maybe it's Arrow Video. I can't remember, but I actually haven't seen that.
Oh yes, yeah. Especially during Halloween. I'd put that. Hey, we might even try to do a retro. To me, it's got some flaws, but to me, it's got that, like, when you want to watch a Halloween movie, Trick or Treat, it's like that's the one you want to put on.
Right.
It's like Christmas Story or any of those. My opinion, it like fits it, and it has all the stories together, and it's all that kind of Halloween related themes. But
right.
yeah, check it out. I think it's definitely on Amazon, or I think even Ryan might have it on.
Dude, it's probably on Tubi. About everything's on Tubi. Like push come to shove, right? But like, so with those stories, like the first one, you've got Full Circle, where it's almost like Rosemary's Baby or something, where you've got this witch coven that has like Art the Clown going out and doing their bidding to collect their victims. And then once they've got the victims, they sacrifice them to like what I mean, I'm assuming is Satan or something, a demon of some kind that has the kind of traditional like red skin and horns, that kind of thing. And it ends with the woman being raped again, like kind of referring back to Rosemary's Baby, where like you've got Mia Farrow that like is literally like growing the son of Satan, kind of Damien or whatever. But that was a good story. You got kind of the, I guess, a more spiritual, a more, I guess, specter, that kind of like other dimensional kind of story versus like a slasher that's kind of more grounded, like we'll talk about more in Terrifier. And then with the second one is the one that really just kind of doesn't fit, because even in the third one, you've got a lot of those kind of like omnipresent, I guess, kind of like demon motifs, where it's like that Michael Myers, that Freddy, like, just the killer winds up everywhere he's supposed to be, even though there makes no sense why he would be there. Yeah. And then in the second one, you've got a real, as silly as it is, a down to earth story of like an invasion of like a UFO guy. You've got the sound, looks almost like a train or something that's going to hit the window, and then you find out it's like a UFO, I guess, that went by our house. Yeah. And then it's very practical how you've got the character of the UFO man that's chasing her through the house, like very like, hide and seek, ABC, I'm hiding in the closet, whatever, which by the way, reading trivia on it, it was supposed to be a puppet and they couldn't ever get the puppet to work. So they decided to just throw a guy in a suit, which I'm sure that's why he looked like a scuba diver alien or something. Because it's like, well, I mean,
it was awkward, just very awkward.
We spent all this money on a puppet that doesn't work. I mean, we got a couple $100. I guess we can go buy a swimsuit and paint it or something. Yeah. But, and then in the third film, it's very grindhouse. It looks almost like a Quentin Tarantino or Robert Rodriguez kind of like presentation, like the way it looks. It's blown out over saturation, very gory, a lot of dismemberment. I will say the end gag, the shock gag where the woman's been like, made a paraplegic by having all her. I thought that was kind of goofy. Like, I mean, it almost looked like Play-Doh that they like had somebody under the table shaking. I mean, the concept of it is horrifying.
Yeah.
But I think that's where you could kind of see the budget of like, maybe it was like their eyes were bigger than their stomach. They had a bigger, grandiose idea than what they were able to pull off. The rest of it was pretty good though. I mean, there was a scene where the guy was getting like beheaded by a hacksaw. Like that looked pretty good.
Oh yeah.
And of course, I mean, when we get to the gags of Terrifier, they're like, I mean, basically about second to none. Those are awful.
Right.
But with All Hallows Eve, like again, with it being like, and Art the Clown was different too, by the way, like because it was it was a different actor for this one, and it's the same actor for the next three. But like, I mean, for a director's first thing, like with him, a lot of times when you have an anthology like this, you have a different director per anthology. You know what I'm saying? Like this is the same guy doing all three of them. So like, that's a lot. And, I mean, he's done that with all these productions. Like rather than going to a studio and letting them control him, he's like self-funded all this stuff, crowdfunding stuff like that. But then he has complete creative license, and he's able to make the movie he wants to make. And he does a lot of his special effects work. And all that. It's pretty incredible when you really think about it, especially in today's movie.
Yeah.
You know.
He was director, writer, editor, Damien Leone. So this is like his.
Well, I mean, he came up with like the prosthetics and stuff. I mean, a lot of the special effects. I mean, it's all in camera.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in Terrifier, there's a well, is there anything you've got to say about All Hallows anymore, or we want to go to Terrifier?
Yeah, I think I thought the McGuire, Katie McGuire was pretty good as the babysitter.
Yeah,
You
I
can tell
concur. I
it
think
was
she
I
was
can
really
tell
good.
it was a Halloween
Yeah.
kind of influence. And then the kids were fun. And I felt like it would kind of bounce around a little bit. Like she was watching this videotape that came in from the kids got candy from trick or treating. And then every now and then it would kind of flash back to her kind of watching it. So you
Yeah.
kind of got to see it through her eyes. So that was kind of interesting. But I mean, there's definitely flaws to it. But all in all, for like low budget horror movie, I thought it
So
it
with
was
you
okay.
saying that, that really reminds me, like,
Yeah.
last night we were talking about it again. That's why I said we need to do it on camera.
Yeah.
But one of the things I really liked about it is it also had influences from like The Ring,
Oh, yeah.
because there's the scene at the end of the movie where like it's like Art's trying to come through the TV, but he can't.
Yeah.
But then there's also scenes of like the woman, like the babysitter's watching the video, and it's her in the living room, and she can see Art behind her,
Right.
but when she turns around and looks, he's not there. And I mean, those elements and those like that creep factor of like the double dimensions, like I love that kind of stuff. And I felt like they pulled that off really well. And with her pulling the tape out and crushing it, that was kind of what broke that particular trance. But I think he had already crossed over, because not long after that he was upstairs,
Yeah.
and all that stuff was great. I thought that was really, really, really good.
And I thought it was a good way to introduce art, which I don't know how popular. Maybe it was, he got a good response that Damon Leone would add him to make this character that adds three movies into it, kind of like almost like Hellraiser. Remember how I always thought Hellraiser was a star? You're a big fan,
Yeah.
but he was just in the movie,
Yeah,
as the villain was.
well, I mean, so that's definitely something that he did really well. Like whether he intended to or not, or whether he thought it would become what it did. I mean, like you think back to the '80s, you've got like and for anybody out there watching, I understand that Michael Myers started in the '70s. I get that, but the majority of his movies were in the '80s. So I'm going to say Michael Myers, and then like in 1980, you had Friday the 13th. Now it wasn't until the second movie really that you had Jason Voorhees, and it even took another couple movies after that before you got the hockey mask and the Jason as we remember him, right? Then you got like Freddy Krueger, and like you bring up Hellraiser, you have these iconic villains from the '80s that were reoccurring. That's something that really, in a lot of ways, it kind of disappeared. You didn't have this. You would have movies that were similar, like you have like It Follows, Smile, The Ring. All those are similar, but it's not like the same character, right? So, like, but in this, you've got Art the Clown. Now he's gone through 4 movies. He's even Saw. We just talked about Saw. So Saw's a franchise. We got 10 movies going on 11. And you do have Jigsaw, but not every movie even has Jigsaw in it. It's not the same. Like you've got the pig mask, you've got the puppet, you've got Jigsaw himself. Like you don't have this iconic killer in Saw. Even you've got kind of these different variations of him. And then past that, you've got the detective, you've got Amanda. Like you've got this diffusion, right? So like you've got Art the Clown. Now you've got a very iconic, very singular villain who is very. I mean, he's just an embodiment of evil, just like Michael Myers or Jason. So I mean, that's something he did really well to kind of bring that back. And in a way, I think he's kind of treading in his own pool. I don't know that he's got any competition right now. I mean, can you think of any?
You are clown.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think in modern day, yeah.
no, I
Like this
mean,
is a cult classic. This thing has grown. I mean, and I was looking at post production, just looking like
but
Terrifier 4.
I think that's what he did. Yeah, because Terrifier 4 is already greenlit, and
Yeah,
Terrifier 3 is not even out. So like, which I mean, if he's going to self fund them all, he can make as many as he wants to,
yeah,
you know. But I mean, shoot, if he's putting $35,000 in and making $500,000, I mean, that's a hell of a return for yourself.
yeah,
You know, I would love to spend $35,000 on something in a year and get a few million dollars in return. That's
yeah.
fantastic. So, but I think that's where he's really succeeded is he's kind of created this iconic character that people can readily recognize
Yeah.
and say that's Art the Clown,
Yeah.
where nobody else is doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's made him unique in the landscape as compared to something like Smile or something else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um,
It's interesting to see 2016, and then I think COVID because they were trying to film number two. I'm sorry, yeah, the second
yeah,
one,
the second one,
and it
because
kind
it
of
came out in
COVID, it
2022.
delayed it like a bunch.
Right.
So because I followed like Chris Jericho, former WWE wrestler, he's at AEW, and he's a big horror guy. He was actually had some cameos in it, and he said that they delayed this thing for a while. The number two,
Right.
so
So, but then, so moving into Terrifier, so again, like he was so focused on practical effects, but if he didn't have a huge budget, I mean, there's probably part of that's the reason why. But, you know, from what I'm aware of, I was kind of reading about this a little bit last night, but there's a scene with a pumpkin, a jack-o'-lantern that was CGI'd because he just thought, you know, I need to make it feel a little more Halloween. So he had them go back in post-production and add that jack-o'-lantern that wasn't there prior. I mean, other than that, I mean, you know, there's some severe gags in this movie. I mean, a woman getting shot in the face 15, 20 times, another woman getting her face ripped apart by another human, a woman getting sawed in half by a hacksaw. I mean, which, you know, by the end of the movie, that scene kind of makes a little more sense. But I know that was one of them, I guess, me being stupid nitpicky when it happened. I was like, no damn way. Like, there's no way you would cut through all those ribs and like spine and all that stuff with a hacksaw. I mean, yeah, okay. I think maybe eventually you could get there. I mean, he saws all the way to like her nasal cavity, but I mean, you wouldn't do it in 60 seconds or less, you know.
yeah,
And of course, I'm sure there's part of that of them, like, I guess, streamlining the film of like, you're not just sit there for 10 minutes of them doing it, but it was so quick. It was like, I don't know. That one didn't really land for me.
yeah.
Which I was kind of, that was the one thing I knew about Terrifier 2. That was the one thing I knew about it going in, is that there was going to be a woman that was going to get sawed in half. And I was like, man, I wonder how they're going to do this. I wonder how graphic it's going to be. I wonder, you know, I just didn't know what I knew it was going to happen, but I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah. Yeah, looking at it real quick, interesting. I guess I didn't realize this. So $35,000 budget
As
compared
compared
to
to
all,
500,000.
exactly how it almost went down, and it did make it made some money at the box office. I mean, gross 416,000 you're coming out,
Yeah. So, I mean,
and
that's, if you're the guy that financed the movie and you're like getting it out there, that's a hell of a return.
it was
Which, not to mention, this is one of those things that gets a ton of play. It's on like Tubi and Freebie and all this
yeah,
stuff, and you know he's making some kind of residuals off that. It's not just sitting on there for nothing. You know what I mean? Now, it might not be for, say, Amazon. It might not be expensive residuals as compared to like Top Gun Maverick or something, but they're paying him something, and I'm sure it's probably going directly to him. So he really won on that.
yeah,
But, you know, talking about All Hallows Eve, and what I really liked about it was some of the spiritual aspects, like, you know, with Art the Clown just jumping around and this, that, and the other. Like, for a lot of this movie, it felt more grounded. It felt more like, yes, he's an omnipresent being by the fact that he's very terrifying and he's got the power and he's chasing people, and they stab him. Does he get shot? I know he gets stabbed in the back. He gets stabbed in the leg.
yeah.
He gets beat. He shoots himself. That happens at some point. And like, so he does take damage, but it doesn't really slow him down. So, like, I mean, that's a very Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees kind of thing. And he never runs either, from what I recall, but yet he winds up just kind of being where he needs to be. So, but for
Oh yeah,
him
first
having,
off, we spoil it. We're gonna spoil this. If anybody's like, "Hey, if I want to watch this, I'm not sure. Do some spoilers or
I mean, I think we've already done it, but I mean,
yeah,
at this point, for anybody watching this channel from this point forward, I
yeah."
would just assume spoilers. We're not going to waste our time saying no spoilers anymore. Just
We
we're
can
doing a
put
full
spoilers.
review of anything we want to say.
Yeah, we can
That's how
put
it's going to be.
spoiler. We can put spoilers.
Well,
I
you
guess
know,
in there.
I,
Some
I,
people
I
put
had, I had
spoilers.
written I had written kind of like how South Park's got like, the disclaimer before it. I've written one. We've never put it on anything yet. We need to do that. It's just pretty funny, I think, what I've written. Maybe we'll get that on here on this one. Who knows?
Say, hey, maybe I want to watch this for Halloween or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Anyway.
So, um, yeah, if this is something that interests you, I mean, too late to say it now, but go watch it and then watch our review of it. I don't know. Watch our review and see if it sounds like it's for you. Brandon, I'm talking to you. I know you read all kinds of spoilers and don't care. You just want to experience the movie and know that it's worth watching. It's worth watching. Do it.
Right.
So
looking at so David Howard Thornton, this is his first, portraying or acting as Art the Clown, and him from the other actor. To me, I liked about him, he was tall and lanky, and I think his previous background, looking at him, he did some like Broadway, so this was like a legit actor, and I guess they pulled him in. But he had this like meme look, tall and lanky, and like that first scene, iconic scene to me is like he's in that pizza joint, kind of looking over at the girl, and he would show the different facial expressions and just kind of spooky the way he walked and moved around. And I thought this was like an upgrade compared to the other actor. He did a good job.
I concur. And talking about the supernatural stuff. So this one does at one point give it away that this is going to be more supernatural than meets the eye, because in the diner, like the pizza joint, like you're talking about, he is focused on Tara. Isn't that the girl's name? Yeah, Tara. Yeah. He's focused on Tara like nonstop. Like he never loses eye contact with Tara. Yeah. And I think Dawn is the one that goes over and takes a selfie with him. Yeah. And he's never looking at her in the selfie, like at the camera, at her, no nothing. But later, whenever they're looking through the phone, Art is looking directly at her in the phone whenever he never looked at her. So you know that there's something going on there, that you've got an extra planar, extra sensory kind of thing going on. Yeah. And yeah, this guy that acted for Art, so like apparently it was the same mask, but this guy was clearly skinnier than the other guy. Right. So like the way it formed his face and the way it over exaggerated his cheeks, his chin, his nose, like all that stuff, it made it much, much creepier than the other guy. Yeah. And because, like you say, he was a Broadway actor, and I think he had some mime acting in there as well, but he's a lot more robotic in his movements, kind of like a mime is, where it's really over exaggerated. I kind of feel like the other guy was just kind of like, he wasn't really miming. Like he was quiet, he didn't say anything, and he had the motions, but he wasn't really over exaggerated. He wasn't really stiff, like clowns and mimes really are. Yeah. And then because he had that little extra bulk, I don't know that it had the same effect, like you're saying that he had, being a little bit, I guess, taller and leaner. Yeah. And it did come across as much more menacing.
Yeah. Yeah, but he was just kind of scary on that end, and then also there's some comedy. He have it like, he had like the baby with Tommy, like, that kind of thing. You can kind of tell he's trying to add some jokes in his sick way. And I thought his mom's the way he would move around, everything was really good. Kind of like he wanted to give the flower.
So he was like, I know you're not meaning to give me like easy layups, but again, reading last night, so like, what's Art's name again? You said it was Howard or something like that?
David Howard Thornton.
David Howard Thornton. Okay. So reading, that scene, you've got the woman who's on the spectrum. She's clearly disturbed with the plastic baby. She's, a cast off from society. Nobody knows who she is, whatever. She's homeless. And she comes over and gives him a hug and holds him like a baby. He starts sucking his thumb and all that. And apparently, like, the actor for Art, like, because her performance was so strong and she was so like connected to him and committed to him and all that, like in the scene, like so much more than what he felt like was on the page, he actually started crying, like talking about the actor himself. So I mean, that's kind of a wild thing if that's real. But I mean, I thought the acting performances in this, top to bottom, were actually pretty good. I mean, the victims, Art the Clown, all that stuff was actually above par especially for a $35,000 movie. It was.
And I did like the way they did, like the setting. It had that kind of spooky Halloween. You could tell it was really Halloween influence way. All Hallows Eve, of course.
Yeah, and I mean, because they were in the abandoned building, so that really gave them a lot of freedom. They had like underground tunnels. They had upstairs rooms that had like cages around the windows. Then you had the hallways, like because it was an abandoned building that had multiple. Well, and it wasn't abandoned. I mean, it had a rat infestation, was how they explained it. So nobody was there, and they just had exterminators there. So that's how they were able to get extra victims. But because of that, so you had the extra element of having rats they could kind of throw around and be creepy. Sure. And then, that was how you explain an empty building. They were able to just run through and terrorize everybody.
I thought the iconic, go back to the iconic thing. I know we always made the joke about Commando and First Blood. He was getting the setup scene.
Yeah,
Like he showed him
to start
putting
the
his
movie.
mask on,
Yeah,
showing all of his like hacksaw and his like syringes and everything.
his homemade cat of nine tails
That
with
was kind of
scalpels
cool.
on it.
And then to me, the music was good. It had this like grinding, like lower.
Mm.
I mean, it's good. The whole pacing. And then I guess what was your maybe favorite, like maybe or maybe more iconic kill? The other one, since this first one just stood out. Maybe besides the
I mean, yeah, I was gonna say it would have to be the one getting cut in half. Just, I mean,
real.
that was brutal. It was over the top. I mean, it was very ambitious.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To try and pull off that gag for a movie of like this budget, and I do think I feel like it probably could have been done better than it was, but it wasn't bad. You know, it wasn't
Yeah.
like so poorly done that it was
Guess this
ineffective.
is the thought of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those that the thought of it is just awful. You know what I mean? Like, it just think about a hacksaw. I mean, they had the one shot that was kind of like between the butt cheeks with the hacksaw. Like, that was the worst part, honestly. Like,
Right.
because that was the one that looked the most realistic and the most like, you know, just kind of get in your head of like, ooh, like there's a lot of soft tissue that you would hit there, and you know, the happy fun time area before you get to like, you know, a pelvic bone or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, so like that to me, that was the most memorable. And then when the girl gets shot in the face, like she gets shot in the face, almost like um, Benicio del Toro in oh my gosh, what was the movie he did? The second one,
Sicario.
Sicario. Thank you,
Yeah.
Sicario 2. It was almost like that, where she gets shot in the face and she's still alive, but she's incapacitated.
Yeah.
And for like a while, like Art's like, dang, I'm out of bullets. And
Mhm.
like takes his time,
Yeah.
goes over to the bag, pulls everything out of the bag, finds his clip, pop, pick it in, click it, somber back,
Yeah.
boom,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
boom. You know what I mean? It was like excruciating. It might have been 60 seconds, but it felt like forever,
Yeah.
you know, for her to like to have that done. Man, that was rough too. And it was very effective. Like the gag on that one was really good.
Right. And I think like who's the pest guy or whatever that's trying to help out, but he had kind of brutal death too, right?
Yeah, where he got hit with the hammer,
Yeah.
and then like and then the stuff at the end.
Yeah. But I thought all in all the kills were good. You can definitely say the influence from the other films. Of course, you definitely say like Halloween, of course. What other maybe influential films that were maybe homages?
Well, I mean, I kind of feel like we've kind of mentioned with some of the. I mean, to me, like it's not exclusively, but like I mean, it definitely calls to mind all those '80s slashers, right?
Yeah.
But of course, and it's even more um solidified at the end of it whenever he spoilers shoots himself,
Yeah.
where it's like, okay, well, I mean, that was a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, no one would survive it.
Yeah.
And then he pops back up in the morgue. Like, I mean, clearly he's got to be an otherworldly entity of some kind, whether
Yeah.
it's a demon or whatever, a specter or something.
Right.
Which I guess is how we get to Terrifier 2. I
Yeah.
haven't. You've seen Terrifier 2. I haven't,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I mean, that might be something we get the opportunity to talk about some other time.
Yeah.
But I know that like in some ways, I kind of felt the filmmaking of the other film was a little bit better. It
Hmm.
was a little bit like the stories had a little bit more depth. You had more variety.
Yeah.
This one was a little more just, it was hide and seek.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was a
Right.
lot more simple.
Basic story.
I mean, very basic. And I mean, and I talked about this last night, but I mean, the thing I really, really disliked about it, like, and I'm really kind of in the middle. I don't know exactly how I feel about the film. I don't hate it. I don't love it.
Yeah.
You know, but like it used that trope from like Psycho, where you've got the protagonist that you are supposed to be behind and root for them, like a final girl kind of thing, and then she dies like I don't know, like 50 minutes into it or something, 40 minutes into it, and then we have a transfer from her being the final girl and her being the protagonist to someone else.
Yeah.
And 99% of the time that doesn't work. And the reason why it doesn't work because you've already spent over half the movie or half the movie investing in this character, getting to know them, understand the plight they're in, rooting for them, and then all of a sudden they've lost.
Yeah.
And now you've got to try and apply those same emotions and feelings to someone else who hasn't been in the movie to that point.
Yeah.
Because in this case, it winds up being her sister, which winds up being the reveal that she's actually the interviewee from the opening of the movie, which that part was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But it just the only part she'd been into it then at that point was like a really awkward scene where like this couple comes in and like starts to make out on her bed like 2 feet from her. It's like, I guess I am going to come pick you up because I don't want to stay here with these people on my bed like making out. So that'd have been like it up to that point.
Right.
You know, we didn't know anything about her. We didn't, you know, hey, she's a smart college kid studying for a final. Like that's what we knew, you know. And that kind of stuff is really difficult to pull off. I mean, really, I mean, I can think of other movies that have done that, but like really, truly, honestly, Psycho is the only one I can think of that I feel like made it work.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, it was Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, that's part of the reason why.
Yeah,
know?
you couldn't really have a connection with the character.
Right.
It kind of cuts it off halfway through.
So I mean, I honestly think that may be part of the reason why I don't feel as strongly like, oh yeah, that was a great movie. Like I mean, I think it kind of it pulled me in too many directions. Then so you pair that with like how simple the story is. Other than that, it's almost incongruent. It almost doesn't fit to some extent. I mean, it does and it doesn't. Like it's not like, oh, well, that doesn't fit to the point of like, how do they do this? Like the twist ending of High Tension. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's really grating.
I think it's supposed to have a vehicle to maybe Damien Leone was trying to like make this iconic character, give it a start, and it went very basic, so much like Halloween with Michael Myers. And hopefully, it's going to try to build.
So I haven't
Throughout
seen
the-
two, but I mean, if you were to look at like the ratings of all these things, I mean, two's got a much higher rating than
Two is a whole lot
or
longer.
yeah, it's
I
like
think
2 hours
like,
and 20 minutes. So
yeah,
that's you're invested in a horror movie 2 hours and 20 minutes. I mean,
it's definitely more money, bigger production. I mean, well, more than the 35,000, several millions. I don't want to misquote, but yeah, you could definitely tell. And then I think number three had even more money, which is, but I mean, good for Damien Leone to keep building this up. I guess you can call it franchise
I
now,
mean,
right?
it's a franchise at this point,
And
for
they're working
sure.
on
Like,
four,
no
I
doubt.
believe. So good for him, man. But yeah, all in all, good movie gave you a good like how that Halloween type. We got to watch it. Also watch Smile. Give a little teaser. Might
Yeah,
review that down.
yeah, I was going to say, don't give too much away on that. Now that one's one to talk about. That movie was great.
There was.
That's a real horror film.
I feel
And
like we started high and then throughout the week we
yeah,
watched three movies this weekend. So a little.
yeah, and didn't get the last Kumite. That might have really dropped off. We had watched that. Or watched the Cynthia Rothrock movie, maybe. But the thing with Smile, just real quick. So like, you know, when I make a comment of like a real horror movie versus not, I mean, to me, there you can absolutely have a horror movie, but it'll have like comedy elements that kind of like bring you back from these moments of high tension.
Mhm.
And like, it's not that those aren't horror movies, but I do feel like those are more for true entertainment. Like they're it's different versus like something like this or Martyrs or High Tension or some of these other movies that there is no comedy in Smile. Like it is all just ratchet, tighter, tension, and it gets under your skin.
No comedy, just straight.
It gets under your skin, and I
Adrenaline.
mean, it was really good. Like I mean, I expected it to be good, but I did not expect it to be as good as I thought it was. But we can talk more about that in another one, hopefully.
Oh yeah, pretty good down the road.
Is it time to go to the video store? Hit the rewind button.
I think it is. Make sure to like, subscribe, share the podcast. Trying to make this thing grow more, and we really appreciate Chris and I be able to come together.
Yeah, it's
we're
a good one.
living.
This was fun.
Yeah, it was. And as always, be kind, rewind.